it's good to make sacrifices for things that are meaningful to us, and it's good to, I mean, for me, I'm devoted to living a life of service, and I mean that with my whole heart, and that means taking care of myself. Amazing.
This feels good, right?
Yes, something different.
Adriene, I'm going to be honest, I'm nervous. You say that yoga's for everybody. I'm the world's most immobile man. So I think it might be yoga's for everybody in brackets, apart from Ross Edgley. But we'll find out now. That was a pretty good introduction. So I don't want to kind of delve too much into the specifics of your subscribers and everything. What I want to talk about more is just the impact that you've had, because I think the pandemic has been and continues to be so hard for so many people, but heroes have emerged, you being one of them. And one of the first times I became aware of you was actually on the interview that you did with Russell Brand. And I went back over that recently, and the most liked comment, and if I could read this to you, was with 1,300 likes, "This woman will never know how many lives she has saved." And I just wanted to ask you, are you aware how big the impact that you've had?
Right out of the gate. I'm aware that we all have the power to create a very large and meaningful ripple effect, and I'm becoming more able to kind of embody and embrace that I'm a part of the all. Like I have the power too. I feel like I talk a lot about how this ability to create a ripple effect based on one small action. Like I know this idea, but then I tend to in the past play really small and So what I'm trying to in this moment, and truly that was kind of my intention for coming into these 2 days here, was to really be present in the fact that I can create a big ripple effect too. But what I really want to say is oh no, I'm just a girl from Texas in my house, because I feel that way too, but I also feel like it's just time for us all to relax our shoulders, which you can do now, and take a breath and really own that we are very powerful. And so, I am aware.
You are? Okay, you have superhuman modesty. We've already talked about this outside. But looking now at how obviously your channel just went crazy during the pandemic and you helped so many people, where do you go from here? What does success look like for you now?
I think it's, all signs right now are really pointing, go back in and go back to study, which also sounds like maybe I'm just saying that to be modest, but I feel like that's the responsible thing to do. I never really wanted to become the world's celebrity yoga teacher or international yoga teacher. It's not that I'm rejecting that, because I want to be honest and I'm human. It's wonderful to have connections with people all over the world and to receive feedback from different and diverse communities, in terms of the work too, especially in yoga, because I live in the West. But I feel like I'm really inspired, and also I have to be honest, I feel a lot of pressure right now to go back in to self-study, but also to learn more. For example, I feel like I know a lot intuitively from just the way I was raised, and we all do, what we carry from well beyond even when we're walking in these bodies. And I also feel like I've had the opportunity to connect to my gut instincts, and through the project, really, it wasn't really ever a business or supposed to be. Through the project of Yoga with Adriene, I've had this great opportunity to check in and make decisions based on my intuition instead of what other people were telling me. But I feel like right now, I'd like to learn more. So the example I was going to give is two things. I enrolled myself in a Spanish class a couple of years ago because I'm Mexican-American, I'm a native Texan, and I don't speak Spanish. It's embarrassing for me. It's pretty ridiculous. My mom didn't raised me bilingual. I took American Sign Language in school. So that's one thing that I was doing kind of for me and my family, but also for the work and for the community. Like I felt like like I could go on just being successful, but I was like, so that was calling to me to be able to teach in Spanish. So that would be a big move that I'm currently in. And then another kind of point of action that I'm taking, because I just feel this pressure and this responsibility, but I'm now starting to feel inspired, is I'm taking a neuroscience course that's like designed for people in wellness, basically designed for non-scientists like me, so that we can learn to apply the work. Basically, I'd like to be able to, in this next phase, create a wider vocabulary for the things I already know and intuit. Obviously, there's a lot I don't know and I want to keep learning, but does that make sense? I want to be able to reach more people by not necessarily showing scientific proof of like why movement and how movement can affect the brain in such an incredible way and improve function just in all areas of life. Yeah, I think that's my next big wave, is kind of like, instead of going out, which we did in the pandemic, we really showed up virtually for everything. Hey, that's a play on words. So now I think it's about kind of, going in and going back to study. And
I love that. So bringing like a scientific study to yoga as well as the spirituality of it, basically.
Yeah, but also with the language, I think it's just about, taking some time to be with the practice and the tools, and instead of performing like this perfected offering.
Also, as well, to go back, so we talk a lot about success. It's very easy to see the 10 million subscribers, the empire that you've built. But if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to 2015, because I think it's so easy to see GQ heroes. You see all these people, the success and everything like that. But 2015, you had vocal surgery, didn't you? And you had to, if I'm correct, borrow money for the surgery to actually continue. So it was kind of this period where you were at a real crossroads. Do you continue with Yoga with Adriene, or do you look for something else? In that moment where so many people would have just said, no, I'd have got another job, thrown in the towel, you continued. Why?
Because of the community, because of the people, because of the feedback. That comment from the Russell brand, I think that's one of the biggest gifts of my life, really. That sounds so dramatic. One of the biggest gifts of my life, but one of the greatest gifts that has come from this opportunity, this little project, is getting to connect and hear from people all over the world in a very intimate and somewhat vulnerable way, which makes me want to kind of meet them there. And so right at this time, pretty much no one was watching the channel. I think it's sometimes I think it's a fluke that we kept doing it with weekly consistency, which I think was very key for so many years, the consistency. But I feel like as a higher power would have it, who knows? Like it was instantly, like as soon as people started watching the channel, basically, like no views. I remember being like 100 views. Oh my God, let's celebrate. I swear it was like the week that the numbers started to go up, I started to lose my voice. It was freakish. So the timing of that, I think, is what enveloped us in like, let's stick with this, like, because it was just right in that moment that people were starting to comment and give feedback and share their reflection on their experience. And I mean, it was thrilling. It was thrilling. And I remember, it's probably still somewhere on YouTube. I don't know if I should direct people there, but I have, I did like the whole Bob Dylan thing where I was like, I'm going to be taking a week off with the note cards, or with the sign. I wrote them all out. I did some silent, I'm a fan of old movies and silent film. And my partner and I met in films. He's also like cinema lover. And so we did some silent yoga videos, like an old silent movie. So there's like an era of videos where you can see like we persisted. I did take some time off because I actually couldn't talk after the surgery. But the crazy thing is, a year after the surgery, the same thing that was going on with my vocal cord came back, and it was like same exact thing, same exact surgery, and that's when I started to get a little weird, and I was like, okay, what's the message here? Like, and it was, I mean, this sounds so cheesy, and I do feel like, oh my God. But since we're here to have this conversation, I felt like, okay, the message is the first time I didn't listen, that people were tuning in and that my voice was being heard. And I just want to say this is true for all of us, not just me. But so it was the second vocal surgery. I was like, okay, I think that I've been given an opportunity to recognize that my voice matters. Someone's listening, rather, let's say that. And it sounds strange, but everything changed after the vocal surgery, including my voice, which you could tell. The very first video in 2012 was very high-pitched, and I was 10 years younger, so I've really grown up with the channel.
So it's been reoccurring, because in the recent GQ article, which I don't think's out yet, it's a great article. I think I've got a preview of it, so check it out when it's out. But you talked as well about burning out. It was just during COVID, with the growth of the channel, you were just working so hard and you couldn't outsource to anybody. You were just basically carrying the whole burden yourself. Again, was that related to the vocal surgery? How did you remedy it this time? Because you seem in such a better place now. So what did you do to kind of recover and reset?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually all just this year. And it's the first time that I have ever even said the words like I got burnt out, because I will admit, I think we all do this, particularly in my line of work or the wellness industry, which I also have, I feel like I have a weird place in. But I admit that this was the first, I was in a really just relaxed, present mood during that interview, and I just decided to share the truth, which is I got totally burned out after the pandemic. I realized what amazing privileges I have and had during the pandemic and still have. But the truth was I didn't fill my own cup. I wasn't listening to my body, and it's just the age-old irony, right? It was like my body started to break down, and maybe that's what happened back then, and I just didn't have the awareness, when I had the vocal surgery too. The body, right, doesn't lie, and so that was actually really recent. And GQ exclusive. It's the first time I admitted to burnout instead of packing it away, hiding it, and covering it up and planting, and I think it's healthy for us to do that and realize that it's good to make sacrifices for things that are meaningful to us, and it's good to. I mean, for me, I'm devoted to living a life of service, and I mean that with my whole heart. And that means taking care of myself too. And so that was the big aha moment this year. And what I actually literally did was hop in a car with my dog, Benji, and, got an oil change, would suffice, and then drove from Austin, Texas to a little island off of Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. So only a slightly dramatic move, but something very physical. And I think that's really good for the brain and obviously for the body and for the spirit. And obviously I realized what a privilege it was to be able to hop in my car and luxuriously drive, with podcasts and music and poetry and I went back to that Erykah Badu album, Baduism, this whole thing. Like, it was fun. I realized what a privilege it is to even have that time to do that. But I think it doesn't have to be that. And I realize not everyone can do that. So taking little intentional actions, it can be at home, it can be a loop in the park, in the neighborhood, but these really intentional actions where we put the phone away. And that was the best part about the drive. It's a long drive. I was the only person in the car. Benji can't drive yet, so I was behind the wheel the whole time, and I was off my phone. I wasn't on Slack, I wasn't on Basecamp, I wasn't on email, I wasn't on social media. And it did the job. And then what I say in the article, though, is the funny thing is just when you think you have everything under control, then I got a call that my mom had had a stroke, and she's doing quite well. She's doing she's a miracle woman. But it was like also like, okay, and back I go, leave my car and dog there. I only just recently got my car back too. It's funny. So
To change the subject ever so slightly, to talk about yoga more broadly, because traditionally, I think modern yoga has been quite elitist. Is that fair to say? You know, it's kind of quite selective who can kind of get involved. But you've stood against that. You're going against the grain. How did you do that? And would you say it is quite elitist?
I think it can be. I think more than elitist, I actually don't think it's elitist. I think that it can come off that way, but whenever I feel that people who are guiding yoga come off that way, I don't think that they are actually elitist, even though it comes off that way. I think that they feel like they have to pretend. I mean, I don't know, but this is what I think. They feel like they might have to embody a certain level of something to be able to help someone or to teach. And I think not just with yoga, with a lot of things, and particularly with community, really, right, the best thing is to create a safe space where we can meet each other where we are. So if the guide or the leader or the yoga instructor, whatever, you know, if they're kind of already setting up the space to have a hierarchy, it's just strange to me. Because it means we all have to work so much harder to like come together in community. So I just kind of like to try to create common ground while acknowledging all the time with every breath that we're very different. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different things going on in our bodies and in our hearts. And so it's a lot of work, though, holding space like that. And I'm not like, oh, it's a lot of work, but I mean, it takes more effort. And I think that's just the thing, is people aren't necessarily elitist. They just haven't uncovered just how many plates they have to spin. But strangely, the practice of yoga can help us do that, right? Mindfully do more.
Because that's one thing that you've done, I think, better than anyone. Looking at your YouTube channel is so comprehensive. There is a video for everything. Is there anywhere else for you to go now? I love the more videos specifically for men, sport-specific ones. I'm loving those. I'm involved with those at the moment. Age ones, adaptive as well. My dad used to be a wheelchair tennis coach, so you know I love adaptive sports. Is there going to be forms of adaptive yoga? Where are you going with it now with the channel? Because it's already so comprehensive.
Yeah, well, it might seem kind of like shticky or campy to see like yoga for swimmers, by the way, yoga for climbing, yoga for migraines, yoga for cramps, like yoga for when you're angry, yoga, but the I guess the intention, the goal was to kind of have something for everyone so that we can really say like, no, like you think yoga's not for you, well, what do you like, or what ails you? And so I realize it's kind of silly, but there is some strategy, I guess. I don't use that word that often, but there's some strategy behind all of those things. And so, yeah, I love what you're picking up on. I don't know where we go from there, but what I think I'm feeling drawn towards, as I said before, is kind of making the science of it all more accessible. So I've kind of created, hopefully, a safe space for people to come dabble, whether they, I hear this all the time, like, I don't do yoga because I'm not flexible, or I'm not good at yoga, so I don't do yoga. And I'm like, yoga's not for the flexible, and yoga is definitely not for people who are good at yoga. So I think now that we've created a space, hopefully, for people to come and give it a try, whether, I'm not saying I'm everyone's cup of tea or even that yoga is, but a safe space that can potentially slow us down and just bring someone back to themselves. Now that we've created that space, and we've created another, like a subscription app where people can go a little deeper, but in terms of Yoga with Adriene, I feel like I still feel like it's useful. I've always said that, like, the day I feel like YWA is not useful, I'm out. Like, I'll bow out, because that's why we're doing it. So I feel like the next useful thing is to make the science of it all more accessible. And if I've been given these awesome opportunities to meet amazing people, like all of the people here, I kind of want to, I'm a smart gal, I want to take advantage of it. So I feel like there's some great opportunities for me to learn more and to not necessarily go back to school, like a formal school, although maybe, but to really spend some time learning, digesting, and then making that more accessible. So I think that's what's next. And it feels like, particularly for the mental health. So we've been doing, this thing for a while, the abs and the yoga booty, but I think that's the next wave, is talking more about the brain and the mind in a really tangible way.
And you mentioned the app there as well, because I know now it's taking different channels now. Books potentially, tours. I know pre-pandemic you did, was it 675,000 people you did the yoga classes in front of?
We've done a lot of tours, which we call the Find What Feels Good Roadshow. And the goal, a lot of people on the team come from the arts, including myself, so it's basically, we're not teaching in studios or gyms. We're going to theaters, museums, event spaces, opening the tour up in Terminal 5 in New York City, where, a guy on the team saw Bob Dylan play. There's 2 Bob Dylan references in one morning, but that's okay, that's good. I think the last time we were in London, we did Alexandra Palace, and that was 2,400 people. But the goal was, we take kind of our theater background, and I'm not there to perform, of course, but quite the opposite. We create this space where, like, basically the show or the experience, let's say the offering, but the offering starts the minute, like, people start walking up to the palace or to the event. So we're kind of taking care of their experience, or guiding them from basically the minute they buy the ticket. Not just like, okay, and now we're going to come into a comfortable seat, and it begins. We're kind of taking them through this whole thing. And the challenge or the fun goal for these big events, Ross, is that we're trying to, and the crew and everyone, is always like, oh my gosh, really? But then it's exciting. We're trying to create an environment where 2,400 people feels like a 24-person class. So it's very funny. And in terms of content capture, it's really bad because there's just an empty stage, the whole event, the whole class, because we've worked it out to where I can walk around. And we do, like, for every, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but for every 100 people, we have a human-bodied yoga teacher, and we try to invite yoga teachers from whatever city we're in. So we're also supporting the local studio. Those teachers get that, they get paid, which is wonderful, and they get that experience of guiding their community or whoever's come. So that's kind of a sweet thing. I hope to continue to do that in the future. But
more tours?
Yeah, well, more gatherings. I mean, I think it's really beautiful, just the fact that we can gather virtual. I mean, we know this now, but even before the pandemic, Yoga with Adriene was sweet because we were seeing the impact that the virtual gathering was already having. But then taking that and then getting to meet people that you've been talking to for so long, and it's really, I'm more of a facilitator now, but even then, it's the community. They do it on their own, and they're, even now we have people who write each other a good old-fashioned letter, or we have pen pals and they send postcards to one another. And actually, I haven't mentioned this, but we have a free app called FWFG Kula, and it's like a social site. It's a community site. It's completely free, so that if you wanted to engage with community, share about yoga or meditation or just mindful lifestyle, you can, off Facebook or any social media. Because for the longest time we had, the Facebook group, but people were getting so beautifully honest and truthful about their practice and their lives that we didn't feel comfortable keeping that on Facebook. So within that Kula app, there's a whole section, a whole room is what we call it, where you can get a pen pal. These are people are at all ages, it's very sweet, the connection. So
I'm just conscious of time. I thought we've got 25 seconds. I don't think that's enough time to do yoga.
Of course it is.
So I'm going to finish with one more. We've got 19 seconds. One more question. You've inspired so many people. Who inspires you?
The community. We're here to kind of embrace the word hero, and for me, let's do it. Look,
we've got 5 seconds.
Center of the map. The most heroic thing is taking 1 second to sit on your own and show up for yourself and just sit up nice and tall, align your head and your heart and your center, your gut instincts, and take a breath in and take a breath out. And one moment can lead you right into the next present moment, into the next, into the next, into the next. So really, the people that show up for themselves, particularly at home these days, those are my heroes and my greatest inspiration, because it's hard.
Oh, I love it. On behalf of everyone at GQ, Adriene, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. You're wonderful. And I can't wait to do yoga with you later. Thanks, everyone.